Hello and welcome, everyone. This is week 5 of the Collegiate Chess League Spring 2026 season. We've got a Division II match here for you all today. This is between University of Pennsylvania and Virginia Tech. I believe they've just started their games, so let's dive right in and see how the match is going. All right, so here we've got Candidate Master London Kid representing the UK flag. This is the board 2 from UPenn, Joshua Altman, playing up against Krishna. That is the board 3 from Virginia Tech. And both players around 2,500, 2,600. Should be a close match. I think UPenn might be a slight favorite, but who knows? It's going to be close. Let's check in with some of the other players. Here we've got Math Person from Virginia Tech. This is the board 2, Thomas Lane. I believe they're team captain. And they should be playing against, looks like Dan Shen. Dan might be the board 3. So I might have to swap that out. And we've got one other game that I see. We've got Kuklu versus Anne-Marie. So Anne-Marie, this is Anish from Virginia Tech. Their top board, 2743. And Kuklu is the board 4. National Master, though, for UPenn. And there's one more game that's just started. It's the top board from UPenn, Justin Lee, JLL 2006 versus Abby the One. So Abby 2297. This is the board 4 for Virginia Tech. So maybe it's Virginia Tech that's the favorite. I'm not sure. The board 4 difference is actually kind of significant. What's up, Asian Logan Roy? Good to see you. How's it going? Let me know if you guys are cheering for a particular team. I remember a couple weeks ago, I was watching University of Virginia, and there were some Virginia Tech players in the chat talking some trash. So we'll see if Virginia Tech stops by in the chat again. But yeah, Justin might be the player to watch, the strongest player in the match at 2790. It's pretty good. FIDE Master as well. Virginia Tech's top board, 2743. Still pretty good. Much stronger than I am for sure. So I guess we have 3 titled players, and they're all on UPenn. And these are Division II teams. Normally they're competing in Group B, which competes at 11 a.m. Eastern time. But these teams agreed to play a little bit later on in the day. And because of that, we're able to watch them on broadcast, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, we have c5 here attacking white's strong center, this pawn chain here. If pawn takes, which is exactly what we see, the queen will recapture. If we don't take, then black has the opportunity to take, and that could potentially isolate our pawns. We could take with a knight there, and black would have to give up their dark square bishop, which probably they don't want to do because this is the fianchettoed bishop. Notice black has played g6 here, and that's going to help protect along this light square diagonal, but it does create some dark square weaknesses around this king. That being said, white has already given up the bishop pair, so they are missing their dark square bishop. So that's one immediate imbalance here. We have a knight versus a bishop. Otherwise, white has 3 pawns against 2 on the queen side. And it looks like Yeah, black's going to complete development, lifting this bishop off the back rank, probably looking at c6 as an option. White just bringing in their last piece that they haven't moved. Rook a d1, contesting the d file, and we see that bishop doesn't go to c6 actually, immediately goes to a4, putting a question to that rook. So this is really nice for black actually. If we push this pawn, we're really weakening c3. And that's exactly what we see here, actually. In fact, okay, can we take this? No, because the knight defends the rook. I was going to say if queen takes and pawn takes, then this bishop will be hanging as well. But yeah, the bishop, all it needs to do is tuck back, and now this is going to be a weakness. This bishop's also pinned as well. So yeah, knight here, I mean, black has a lot of this defense here. We don't want to become too passive. And even if we do try to defend this pawn, there's always b5. And that's going to dislodge the bishop and open up that queen again. So b3 was induced. Maybe bishop b3 was better, but white maybe not feeling as comfortable trading down into that endgame. So looking good so far for Justin, top board from UPenn. But makes sense up against board 4 from Virginia Tech. Let's check in with London Kid. And looks like they're doing well with the black pieces here as well. b5, starting the attack on the king for white. Also helps defend the knight, but the queen was also there. Hey, Skaki. Good to see you. Shout out to Athens. NTUA checking in. Hope you guys are doing okay. Also aware of the time zone change here in the US. Daylight savings. I know it's thrown off a lot of people. So hopefully not affecting you guys too much. All right, lots of time spent here from Krishna. Krishna was up on time, but it's looking to even out a bit. Let's check in with Kuklu here versus Anne-Marie. Good, the coaches are well informed on top of it. Love to see that. All right, this is a connected pass pawn here, and this knight is pinned. The king can step up, but this pawn's going to start running. So I think you just take, rook takes, king takes, and that's going to be a new queen. So we see resignation there. Virginia Tech gets on the board first, their top board, beating the 4th board from UPenn. An expected result there, about 700 rating difference. Here it looks like damaged pawn structure for black. So an advantage for white, also up a pawn. And this is going to be big for UPenn if they can hold on to this advantage. Dan Shen, board 3, taking down Thomas Lane, the board 2 captain. But math person not giving up. Lots of firepower on f2. Pretty much everything black has is defending this. Black could try to throw in a rook sacrifice, an exchange sacrifice to crash through, but might not be worth it. Instead, we see a simple pawn push. That's going to help protect against knight to g5, hitting both the queen and this mate threat. So rook all the way over to f1, and now the eval bar swings. And it said the move was knight to e3, a ridiculous move, but super fancy idea is that the bishop is helping the knight hop in. This pawn was pinned along the f file, but that was missed. And now we have c4, trying to lock out this dark square bishop. Thomas says my bishop will not be denied. Bishop to d4, and this is looking to create an outpost square with the move c5. But white finds a nice way to trade down the bishops. Playing chess for never. Is Anne-Marie underrated OTB? I don't know their over the board rating. Okay, we have a second result. Justin wins for board 1 for UPenn as well. So the board 1's getting the job done against the board 4's. And the last 2 games here, both under a minute for each player. So we have some time scrambles. And here we have a big blunder. Yeah, the knight check. Black is crashing through. So we could see resigns here from Krishna. But no, white's going to continue on here. There is a passed pawn, but this king is probably going to get mated. Rook lift would blunder mate in 1. So yeah, instead queen check. This rook's going to come in as well. Rook check, and we're going to have a mate very quickly. There's a mate in 3 at least. This is a mate in 2, even faster. So well done to the London kid, getting the job done for UPenn. So UPenn now taking their first lead of the match. And now here both sides, less than 30 seconds. White still pressing with that extra pawn and a better pawn structure. Rook now infiltrating, but there's nowhere to give checks. This king is very well protected, and now this pawn is threatening to push with the discovery on the king. And if the king steps down, we could have some checks. Yeah, this is going to be very bad. Very bad indeed. In fact, f7 is mate in 3. But we could also see some checks coming in. Black is trying to threaten to win the rook and potentially try to threaten some perpetuals. So f7 was missed. We have queen checking. Pawn takes with check, exposing the king further. However, will white find... This rook is pinned, so you can't add the rook into the equation. So what will we see here? Is it going to be perpetual? Or will white find a way to crash through? How many more checks can you give? Repetition there. Okay, so that's a sigh of relief from Thomas Lane getting a draw there, holding UPenn's lead to just 1. But yeah, Dan not able to find the breakthrough, ending up just taking the perpetual, which is still a good result for a board 3 against a board 2, but probably wished they had more time. 2-second increment is not a lot. 2150 USCF. I mean, yeah, maybe they are underrated, but it's hard like for everyone to translate their OTB to chess.com. It's not going to be the same for everyone. It's also a different time control as well. But 1 round in the books. We've got UPenn leading by 1 over Virginia Tech. 3 rounds to go. So plenty of time for Virginia Tech to come back. Still a pretty close game here. And here we go, round 2. We got Ubby versus London kid. London kid Joshua Altman. Probably from London. Maybe even a kid. And Ubby the 1. 26. Rated 2296 with the black pieces. So yeah, curious to see how the board 4 matchup is going to go. Virginia Tech is definitely the favorite on that board. But UPenn's board 4, maybe they're underrated because they're a national master. So presumably 2200 USCF at one point. But only 2057 chess.com blitz. They did lose in round 1 to Virginia Tech's strongest player, Anish. And now they're playing against the board 2 captain, Thomas Lane. Thomas getting a draw. Kind of a good result considering the position actually had mate in 3 missed. So now Thomas looking to get their first win. They've got the white pieces. Got this knight on d4 here. No c-pawns. Bishop f4. Just keeping an eye on c7. So a6 was played. This is keeping both knights out of b5. But black making sure nothing's getting into c7. Bishop to d6, contesting the f4 bishop. Bishop tucks back. If a trade, white takes back with the h-pawn, opening the h-file for the rook. Meanwhile, white developing their last minor piece, probably getting ready to castle. And probably only after castles, black might trade this bishop. Let's check in with UPenn's top board, Justin, the FIDE master, probably born in 2006. King h2. So a nice center for white, and moving the king off this diagonal helps make it easier to push the f-pawn. So white's trying to brew up an attack here against black. Black has the bishop pair, but these are some strong knights in the center. One knight potentially getting traded off. White looking to advance, pushing through. And we could see knight takes, queen takes. There's bishop f6 apparently. Yeah. Krishna's played it very quickly. They seem pretty comfortable here. Queen steps back. Got to keep an eye on the knight. And yeah, there's also e takes. And if pawn takes, then there's a bishop trade. This king could be left very, very exposed. Very weak. If pawn takes, there's rook takes. Making sure this pawn doesn't reveal the bishops just yet. Potential exchange sack on f6 there. And this pawn would be left isolated. So probably not looking at e takes. Probably not looking to give up this bishop. The computer is liking this move b5. Attacking c4, taking advantage of the c-pawn's pinned actually to this knight. So this is kind of an annoying move. And black finds it. White now can take on e6. Trying to open up that f-file. But then white's going to be the one left with an isolated pawn. Let's check in with Virginia's top board. Anish. Okay, rook lifts. Big discovery being threatened here. Same with castles. That's not going to get black out of this. So probably the queen needs to find a new home. That or the king needs to go to a dark square. These are really your two options. Yeah, bishop c6 check. It's pretty annoying, so. Queen c7's played, guarding the c6 square. Wisely so. Not to be confused with Wesley So, who just recently won the American Cup. We have a result here. So what ended up happening? This is math person, Thomas Lane. Oh, wow. The queen just got trapped. The queen grabbed a pawn that perhaps should not have been grabbed. Just knight a4 immediately. And that's pretty much going to do it. So, yeah. Well done there. Dropping a lot more pieces. So Thomas Lane getting on the board evens things up at 2.5 apiece. Okay, now back to London Kid, the board 2 from UPenn. Bishop takes. Yeah, white. What went wrong here for black? Pawn push. Bishop takes, knight takes, free pawn. Thank you very much. That's not just a free pawn. Hold on. They were already up a free pawn. They took here. Black never retook. So you get 2 pawns advantage here now. And that's a third pawn. That's 3 whole pawns. That's a lot of pawns. That's almost half the pawns. Anyways, I think the f pawn's gonna drop though. I have a feeling, because black can trade knights and then take 1 pawn back, but then white's gonna still be up 2 pawns, which is still a lot of pawns. It's more than 1 pawn. But the London Kid low on time, under a minute, to Ubby. But yeah, I think with the increment, that's going to be more than enough time. It's a nice advantage to have. So, board 2 from UPenn looking good against the 4th board from Virginia. All right, we do see the knights traded, and now the queen recaptures at least 1 pawn. But these are some nice pawns, and this pawn's isolated as well. Potentially weak. We're going to see white bringing both rooks to the center there. And white's game plan is just simplify. Try to trade some things off the board, and we're going to get this extra pawn turned into a passer, a queen. So, yeah, plenty of defense for the pawn. If the rook tries to add on to that, then we'll be trading pawns, and again, that's going to be good for white. In fact, this move here is also going to be very nice. As we can see, I'm wondering if there's going to be a e5. e5 is played here. There's a handful of moves that keeps the rook protected, but look at that pawn go. This is the speedy e-pawn. Push him, baby. This is a game that Yasser would love. A little bit of pawn grabbing. There was that Botez Gambit queen trap from Kuklu. That was not as good. And yes, rook here. Rook's going to the back rank. Guaranteed protection from the pawn. This is going to be resigning soon. Unless you play down to the stalemate tricks. Always some fun potential for some rosen traps. King steps up, but the rook's going to come in just the same. We could see 1 rook check. King steps up. Queen steps aside, but now we can queen. There's also this fork. Don't forget about that. But I like a new queen. I think a queen will do just fine. We're threatening mate with the rook. So that's cool. And there's the resignation. All right. So London Kid improves to a perfect 2 out of 2. Now here we've got Virginia Tech's top board. It's looking to be a dead draw. But low on time, Anish could flag or blunder in time pressure. There goes f4. So the king wants to go on this diagonal. They still got to play out this endgame. Justin getting their second point of the day for UPenn, adding on to the lead. This, my friends, was a blunder. So it turns out the time pressure mistake came from the other side. Maybe c3 here. So yeah, Virginia Tech, top boards, looking to get the job done here. And they're going to split this match, or this set, 2-2 here. That's a free pawn, right then and there. So this was not played so well by Dan. Unfortunately, when they played g5, that was a blunder. So now you can push the h-pawn, but you don't even need to do that exactly. King's coming back. No need for a race. You hold on to your c-pawn. This king is way too far away. You're going to be making a passer. Even if that king does somehow get over in time to stop the pawn, by then white will create a new pass pawn. So that was a dead even game there in that pawn end game. But Anish able to get the win and keeping the match close. UPenn still holding on to their 1-point lead from round 1, but now we go into round 3. Second half of the match. UPenn, they can draw their way to victory. If they just tie every match remaining, then they'll win the match. But Virginia Tech, they improved their score from the first round, and they're looking to improve further to tie things up and potentially take the lead. Can they do it? I'm still waiting for that board 4 matchup. I think there's some potential there. And here we've got Destin from UPenn, the board 4. National Master Kuklu, still looking for their first points. And here we have a French defense. Probably c3 here. At least that's what I play. The computer is saying e takes is best, actually. Just goes to show I don't know my French theory. And really, I don't know much theory at all in general. Oh, we had a really nice mate from Justin's game that we missed. There was pawn push, rook lift, king over, rook here to take here, and I guess black needed to trade this. But this ran into checkmate. They needed a king h7 if they wanted to move the king. So really pretty finish there from Justin. And now we've got Justin versus Thomas Lane. So Justin hasn't been beat yet. Perfect 2 for 2. Thomas technically also hasn't been beat yet, but they did get a draw. So not a perfect start for Thomas so far, but if anyone is going to beat Justin, it's going to be one of these top 2 boards from Virginia Tech, starting with Thomas Lane here. So good opportunity for Virginia to get some points back. We'll see if Thomas Lane can do it. Still very much in the opening here. Both sides castled kingside. And yeah, the last minor pieces are coming out and playing. Computer preferred knight b to d2, connecting knights, instead offering this knight exchange, this trade-off here. So both sides still with the bishop pair. And now it's saying for white to play e4. Instead, queen c2, now knight d5, asking the bishop a question. Probably we want to save the bishop. Interestingly, the computer like bishop d2, which is boxing the knight out. But I agree, bishop b2 felt more natural, just keeping it on the long diagonal, pointing at that king. And this could be potentially why the bishop was better on d2. keeping an eye on a5. So now black gets a rook involved. I was thinking we also keep an eye on f4 if the knight ever comes here. But this e-pawn looks pretty good to me. But yeah, a5, now the rook is there, and the rook's going to be asking the queen some questions. And if the e-pawn ever pushes, then the rook can swing over to the king side. So really nice way to activate a piece, opening the a file. And now you've got the 5th rank to work with. So yeah, now math person's thinking here. There's still a 4th game that I haven't seen started. But let's take a look at UPenn's board 2, Virginia Tech's board 1. So this is a big matchup here, and it looks like we're potentially having an opposite side castles, depending on what white does. But black has decided a queenside castle. White gets the bishop pair. The knight is hit. This is technically an outside pass pawn for white. So if white can trade things down, the endgame could be potentially in their favor, depending on how things shake up. Here, f5 is a very logical move here from black. Boxing out the bishop, protecting the g-pawn. Black might decide to not defend the pawn. Sometimes it's very risky to take pawns in front of where your king will end up because you'll open lines up. But black says, no thanks, I'll hold on to the material. This might seem like a strong structure, but white might decide to castle queenside themselves. Why not e5? I guess e5 also defended the pawn. So that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. The computer doesn't recommend it. e5, and there's bishop takes, rook takes, and now we have queen takes. So the defender was not good enough. There needed to be extra protection. All right, that makes sense. And yes, white does go queenside, connecting the rooks. Probably one of the rooks at least is going to go to the e file. Black is already anticipating this. E-pawn is a little bit backwards, but now it can push. Plenty of support for black to push, I suppose. Maybe not, I don't know. They decide to go this way instead. Now the computer likes f3, just attacking the black structure. King steps aside. This is very common practice in queenside castles. Black hasn't done it yet, but white preemptively going in. Now the knights are connected. Hey Physic, good to see ya. Yeah, I still don't see the 4th game. Who are we missing? We're missing the board 4 from Virginia Tech versus Dan. Is white missing a tile? Title. Oh, I don't know. Okay, f3 is played though. Nice move, just trying to open things up. Hey Chessmater, how's it going? This is Division 2, so not all of these players are titled. Maybe they don't compete over the board as much, but we do have, yeah, a couple of the titled players though. Okay. E5 now. This queen doesn't feel so great opposite the queen. There's pawn takes. So now there's knight takes or rook takes. Rook takes hits the queen. Queen's going to have to find a new home. Instead, knight takes, putting pressure on the bishop and the pawn, and with discovery as well. So this pawn has to either do something or the queen has to move. But we really don't want to allow knight takes. With a discovery, knight would also be hitting the rook. Hey, chess master, how's it going? All right, so f takes g. And now black can take with a discovery. They can take here, and then queen takes. You could trade rooks, and then take back. Or you could just take back immediately. Taking back, and we're renewing the f3 square for the knight. I'm good as well, thank you. I'm still not seeing this fourth game, though, so that's kind of curious. Hope it doesn't take too long to figure that out. Man, black is tanking a lot of time here. Okay, I see the fourth game has finally started. Wow, we've got a4. What a start. Didn't follow up with rook a3. Man, they don't know their theory, I guess. Didn't also play h4, the crab opening, potentially. But okay, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But for now, there's more pressing games, some potential time scrambles here. Here it looks like Krishna taking it to Kuklu. Kuklu only has 21 seconds on their clock, and the position is showing -3 for black. So black's got a lot more pieces playing in this position. White's pieces are a little bit out. So let's see what's going on. Apparently rook f5 is a crushing move. What a crazy position, because this pawn is so weak. Both sides less than a minute. Justin and Math Person. White's pushing their e-pawn through, but the knight's hitting the pawn, so the pawn has to push again, and this is potentially boxing their own bishop out of the game. Oh, but e6 is allowed. What needed to be played here instead? Knight h7 it likes. Wow. Or queen d7 even. Looking for a queen trade. But here now e6 hits the knight again and opens up for the bishop. And that's what Thomas is doing here. So Justin's up a pawn, but is getting bullied by the e-pawn right now. This e-pawn is moved 3 times consecutively. Hey, Speed Chess. Shout out to Speed Chess. Good to see you. Okay, and Justin's also low on time, but up a pawn. We've got, Kuklu and Krishna. So black had a -3 advantage here, but now is less than 10 seconds. Kuklu hasn't gotten any points so far in this match. They've traded off all the rooks. The f-pawn has been pushed, and now the bishop trades off. This is an isolated pawn, but both sides have isolated pawns. Queen e5 is a great move from white. They find it. Pressure on everything. Trading, and now black is the only one with an isolated pawn, and now this king can enter very easily. This is a nice advantage for white. Better structure as well now. Black getting all these pawn islands, and now the knight is coming in. Pressure on the pawn, but that's a check. Pawn pushes. King can go down. Whoa, counter check, but the king is entering. There goes one pawn, a trade-off, a check, but this king is getting in. The B pawn is hanging, but the D pawn is passed. So the knight has to come back. Oh, knight's offering a trade, but white doesn't want to connect those pawns, but now the king is all the way deep, and this black pawn is going to be winning the game. Pawn push, am I right? I mean, I guess there's this knight check. Ooh, didn't want to drop that, but it gives up the knight, and this is still looking great for black. Yeah, this h-pawn's going to get caught by the knight. So, potential blunders for sure. London Kid goes down to the Virginia Tech top board. So, Virginia Tech, Anish, 3 for 3, ties things up. There goes that pawn, and we see resignation there. So Krishna taking down the board for National Master. Also Krishna getting on the board for the first time. And Virginia Tech getting the lead for their first time in the match after the very first game. Here, this is looking like a draw. Black says play on. Black says, hey, I'm up a pawn. The knight is defending against the mate and against the pass pawn. The queen's defending the knight. Notice the light square defense here. This dark square bishop struggling to find something. And black says, I'm just going to keep pushing my pawns. So this pawn potentially halted, I guess, but no. Pawn push. And, I mean, you can't even give this check. Yeah, king g1, and there's nothing. And now it's black that's winning. So Justin, yeah, picks up that bishop there. Pawn block. There goes a second pawn with check. And look at this queen just dominating the center of the board. Now the knight's coming in. The pawn is pushing. There's got to be some queen check. There's 1. There's 2. 3. Nope, there goes this pawn. So trading pawns. Thomas Lane. They were fighting the hold a draw earlier, and they're going to fight for a draw again, but they're down a piece and a pawn. You know what's funny is if it was a bishop, then if it's the wrong color square, depending on how the pawns get traded off, it's still a draw, but this is more than enough for black to win. So Justin's also going to be a perfect 3 for 3. That's going to tie the match back up. Here, just making sure not to stalemate. And we see resignation. So Thomas didn't want to play on to the very bitter end. Justin gets the win there. The match is completely evened up at 5.5 each. That brings us here. Board 4 from Virginia Tech against Dan. Board 3 from UPenn. Both players still looking for their first win. Dan with the white pieces did get a draw earlier against Thomas Lane. So definitely the favorite in this round here with the white pieces as well. And a minute advantage on the clock. So UPenn looking to hold their lead from earlier. There goes the A pawn. So Dan is technically up material. Knight hitting the bishop. So probably the bishop can come back and does so all the way back to f1. If you go to e2, this bishop's pinned. You could potentially see knight c3 with the fork. Of course, we could just take that and give up the light square bishop, but I feel Dan likes the bishop pair, so doesn't want to have to give that up if they don't need to. So the bishop comes all the way home. And yeah, that's just a connected pass pawn, technically, for white. So game plan is pretty simple for white. Just trade things down into an endgame. Black is going to have to either defend or create some counterplay. So they've got an active rook here, but not much else. Strong knight in the center, but it's completely boxed out. Same with this knight. also boxed out by the pawns. All these pawns, really. So, yeah, very solid here for white. This knight probably doesn't want to trade and damage the pawns just yet. So queen stepping over, hitting the knight. Queen steps up to defend. Maybe the queen wants to trade off here. This bishop defended by the rook. The rook doesn't really want to be a babysitter for forever. So the bishop probably wants a new home. Yeah, I don't know what took these players so long, but now everyone else has to wait and watch. So both players under 2 minutes. Luckily, the time will keep ticking. Dan here deciding to reroute the knight here. So yeah, knight couldn't go forward really without conceding some sort of structural defect. So instead looks to reroute. This knight stepping back, control over b5, helps defend this knight. This bishop says, I belong on g2. So get out of the way, knight. And now this pawn pushes. This could be potentially weakening, but this pawn was weak. So white identified a target in black's position. That e-pawn was unprotected. So the knight reroutes for the bishop to keep an eye on this pawn. Now black has to push a pawn in front of the king. This is potentially weakening. But it's all about whether or not white can get to that king. Both sides just about a minute here now, offering a trade. That knight does accept. Queen's putting pressure on the rook, but it's defended by the queen, and now the second knight comes in. So we see the bishop traded off for the knight. Both sides getting something out of it. White likes trading down. It's going to simplify the position. But also, I think black's happy to get that dark squared bishop off the board. And that helps clear up some space in the center for this second knight, the redundant knight, the backwards knight. And now white's going to find a new home for the queen. Queen is hit right now. Less than 30 seconds here. Dan's playing this pretty slow. So queen does go to c4, pressure on the knight. Knight's defended by the queen. Queen gets hit again by the rook. Queen comes back to c1. Now this rook doesn't really have a lot of options. This knight probably wants to go to c2 at some point. So yeah, pawn advantage for Dan, but not very easy to play. Less than 30 seconds on the clock. Ubby, the one, also now under a minute on their clock. We see the bishops rerouting back. So we have opposite color bishops. That's definitely a sign of it's pretty even. But notice the pawns for both sides are on the opponent's color complex. The bishops. I'm wondering if bishop here is a blunder. It seems. Well, bishop here, rook here. There's. I mean, you could just take the knight actually. But then there's rook takes, and your rook is hanging at the end. That's kind of crazy. But I was thinking bishop here. If rook there. Yeah, I guess that was a blunder. So knight steps up, but gets immediately pinned. Queen b2? No, queen b3. Knight goes back again, and now there's this tactic. Apparently, knight takes e3 as a move here, which is kind of crazy, if I'm being honest. But this f-pawn is just very important. So, okay, rook hits the bishop. Queens are in contact. We can trade them off. But yeah, white's finally trying to enter the equation. They're getting pinned. Knight here with a tempo. Bishop's pinned. King's probably going to have to step up. King g2 not played. Rook check instead. Knight moves. Knight can get pinned, but the knight can move and defend the rook. 2 seconds for Ubby. Check, king back. Check again, king back. 10 seconds for Dan. And they might repeat this through. There they do. Yeah, so Ubby on the board now, happy with the draw. And Dan improving to 1 point. 2 draws out of 3 games. And that's going to tie the score up 6-6 each going into round 4. So dead even after 3 rounds. Could the 4th round be the final round, or will they need additional rounds in overtime to settle the score? So 8.5 points is all you need to win. But if things remain tied 8-8, we will go to round 5. Overtime is 3 + 2 blitz. And if it's still tied after that, then it switches to 1 + 2 bullet, which we did watch the other week in Division 1 between Mizzou and UT Dallas. So that was very exciting. We saw double overtime. These two teams proving to be evenly matched so far. So this 4th round is going to be exciting. We've got the top boards, a perfect 6 out of 6 combined between the two of them. And we've got these 4th boards here. Destin, 0 out of 3, has the black pieces and is playing a Scandi. And we've got Ubby the One, who just got a draw in that last round to keep things even. They're looking to get their first win, both of these players, so far in this match. Dan also hasn't gotten a win yet, and they're playing against Krishna, who has also 1 point. Both players 2,500 here. I think that Virginia Tech has the rating advantage on board 4, but anything can happen. The main match we want to watch and keep an eye on is right here. Top boards. Both are perfect so far, flawless. 3 out of 3 each, but only one can remain 4 out of 4. But they could also draw. But yeah, Justin, the favorites by title and slightly by rating. 27.99, discount 2,800. Just looking for one more elo to get to that nice milestone. 2,800 is a nice round number. But we'll see if they can get it. Anish from Virginia Tech looking to lead the team to victory. So we see 1 bishop traded. We see 2 bishops traded. So black is left with a dark square bishop. White left with 2 knights. Very nice space advantage for white in the center. We've got this pawn duo here. Black has yet to break the 5th rank. Wow, and Anish offered a draw early. That's a little bit of mind games in my mind. I perceive that as one of these psychological moves. And of course, Justin declines the draw, says let's play on. Puts a pawn in the center, and now black striking in the center. D5 makes a ton of sense. Rook AD1 also lining up opposite the queen. Queen C7. So they're playing on. No early draws from Justin, at least. Knight here hits the queen. Kind of annoying. And now if the queen steps up, you're going to get hit again. So maybe queen b7 opposite the king. Basically a fianchetto. Gotta watch out for d6. Defended by the bishop for now. d5 still makes some sense. D takes c5 opens up the rook as well, so that has some merit to it. Let's just take a quick look at some of the other boards. We've got the board 2s. Joshua London kid here against Thomas Lane, the Virginia captain. Both players 2,600. So the top 3 boards are pretty much dead even on rating. It's just the board 4s. There's a significant mismatch. So that could be the difference maker here. But that being said, it looks like this last move, bishop back to c8, was not ideal for black. The best move apparently is taking on a4, and you're going to get a fork there at the end. Very interesting. That was missed. So bishop comes back, and now the move here apparently is a5, just clamping down on these pawns. You're getting yourself a nice outpost there on b6. London kid with 3.5 minutes. Both sides pretty even on time, but it's white with the space advantage. And we haven't looked quite so much. Okay, e5 instead, playing in the center here. Still a strong move. Yeah, this game is looking good for white. Yeah, this game also slight advantage for white in the center. Extra space for sure. And that could also be a big difference here is UPenn's top 2 boards both have white. So that could be huge for UPenn. Virginia Tech, they've got, big advantage here for board 4. They've traded off the queens, and there you have it. The bishop comes in. So this was a nice maneuver here. Knight hops in, hitting the rook, offering a queen trade. We do see the queens trade off, and now knight f5. This is taking advantage of the pen, attacking that bishop. So if the pawn takes, then the rook will enter as well with a lot of activity. This is also a discovery on the rook as well with this bishop. Wow, what a nice sequence here from Ubby. Trade off here, and then that's just a skewer. So a nice exchange advantage for white. Rook versus bishop, and now white's looking to get their first win at a crucial moment here. Up in exchange. And let's see how Krishna's doing. Ooh, this could also be a huge point for UPenn. So UPenn is up some material here. But that being said, white does have 2 outside pass pawns. So it looks like black was able to win an exchange. Rook for bishop, but it cost a pawn. So black is for choice, but there's some pressure here. Apparently this is not the move. So knight c3 is played, cutting this rook off. Rook c1 would have probably been an issue. So knight c3 is the best move, hitting the queen. Queen's offering a trade here, and if you take, bishop's going to hit the rook, so that's going to be annoying. That being said, your queen is hanging. So, yeah, even though, offering a bishop trade here. Now the d pawn is weak. Krishna could bring this back. Here, knight takes e4 is played. And yeah, computer just likes a4. Get those pawns rolling. King up. So yeah, it's a 1 pawn advantage for 1 exchange. But I don't think white should lose this necessarily. This is coming down to the wire. Let's look back at the board fours. Yeah, white's crushing, just completely up on the position and on the clock as well. Less than 40 seconds for Destin. So Destin's going to rely on the team for the carry. And let's check back in with our top boards here. So Justin looking to go 4 out of 4. Anish opens up the D file, takes, and yeah, that's an isolated E pawn there. Trading here, but computer does not like trading rooks. That's what he does. Things are still even. Rook A6 is a move. Rook E7 instead, keeping that king cut off. So this pawn will be dropping, but black can also go for the C pawn. So this is looking like it's going to be a draw, actually. It's looking like it's going to be pretty even. But of course, we've seen some even positions played out with some blunders costing some points. Here are the board twos. Looks like Joshua's actually building onto their advantage. So we might see overtime. It's maybe still too early to tell. Yeah, white's getting this active rook here. Takes. Rook comes back. Knight trade is offered here. Yeah, it's just still that extra rook. Here, now there's a check here. There's also knight takes c5. Wow, that was just a free pawn. Hey, thanks, Brody. Yeah. Joshua should just dominate this game. Thomas Lane, way too down on time. Creating weaknesses here. Yeah, dropping the pawn is pretty rough as well. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. You gotta move. Okay. You can also resign. I forgot about that option. Thomas Lane, first one to go down. And Joshua, board 3, improves to 3 out of 4. And here we have white winning on time. So board 4 for Virginia Tech gets on the board with the full point. That's going to tie the match back up. And now we have another result here. So black wins by resignation. They were up by a rook. That's Krishna. That's a big point for Virginia Tech. So, wow. No. Sorry. Dan won that game. That's huge for UPenn. So they win with a draw here. This is a must-win situation for Anish. But Anish is down. Even if they draw, though, that's good for UPenn. So the knight is given up for the pawn. Can Anish win with the extra piece? It's a knight versus 2 pawns. So the knight already putting pressure on some of these pawns. Oh my goodness. Knight's back and the rook is trapped. The knight defends the pawn and it guards the check. The king is coming to g8 next. White in time pressure. Put the rook on h7 and got trapped. King g8. King g8 was a move. Knight takes with check. Oh my goodness. Justin, after a perfect game so far, is going to blunder their rook and now is going to lose this game. And that's going to cost them a potential win of the match. They're going to go to overtime. Wow, rook h7. What a disaster. Anish laying that h-pawn out as bait. Luring the rook to its death. And now Anish is going to tie it up. Whoa, what's up, Cash? Thank you. Shout out to the one and only Cash Carbon. We've got that rook mate played out. Justin losing their first game of the match, and Anish improving to a perfect 4 out of 4. That's going to tie things up here, folks. We're going to see overtime, round 5. So it's going to be the same pairings, but they're going to swap colors, and they're going to have 2 minutes less on their clock. Instead of 5+2 blitz, we're moving to 3+2 blitz. And this is going to be for all the marbles. Anish clutching that one out against the undefeated FIDE master. The moment right here. So black able to push their pawn through to win the piece. This knight coming back, and white thinking they could trap this pawn and create a passer. They messed up. So what was needed? Something like rook d5. But okay, round 5 now underway. We've got Ubby versus Destin again. Destin had a good position, but blundered in the end. I guess maybe time pressure. All right, they don't want to play just yet, apparently. All right. Here we got the board 2s back at it. Now Thomas Lane with the white pieces. A3, B4 for them. Joshua won in their game. They've got some terrible internet quality, apparently. It says they're offline. Okay, now they're back. But yeah, this is a big one here. The board 1s. Can Justin get Anish back? They won a piece, but then trapped their own rook in time pressure. So now it's Anish with the white pieces. These two teams very evenly matched. Still tied after 5. This pawn's going to be an issue. The knight hits the bishop. I can tell you right now, white does not want to give up this bishop so easily. But there's queen b5 as a potential move. Computer actually doesn't like that so much. I guess there was just queen blocks. I'm trying to bully this b pawn. But yeah, there's just c takes d now. White opts for castling, getting the rook involved. So yeah, there wasn't really time. I think if you put the bishop back, for example, you just lose the pawn with like little to no compensation. So castling, you give up the bishop pair, but at least you're significantly ahead in development here, and you're also not giving up this pawn so easily. Okay, now bishop hits the queen, but f6 hits back with a tempo. And that tempo could be all you need. f6 also helps prepare for e5. So that's kind of annoying. Bishop f4. e5 comes with sort of a half tempo because that e pawn is pinned to the king currently. And yeah, this is basically a gambit. Knight takes, hits the pawn, walks into this, which is kind of funny. Maybe. How does this even work? The computer wants to get forked and then play knight b5. And I guess if pawn takes, you have rook e1. I don't honestly know. Bishop steps back, and now black can still play e5. They do exactly just that. And now these rooks are going to try to come in. try to pin these pawns somehow. But black is going to have more than enough time to castle here. And yeah, this is looking like a fun position for black. Bishop pair, extra pawn, significant. So Anish maybe not playing this as precisely as they could have, perhaps as they needed to. Okay. Yeah, now black did not castle though, so knight takes d4 is the move. Here in castles now, again. And then you give up the pawn, for sure. But maybe you get this pawn, and this pawn's weak. Knight takes is played. Yeah, queen takes the pawn. f4. So still a pawn advantage for black, but lots of activity for white. Black neglecting this development. Hard to develop the bishop. Maybe this b pawn falls. More activity for white. Yeah, now Justin under a minute on the clock, and we saw them getting time pressured previously. Apparently rook b1 is the move. This pawn is still pinned, so queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and the second rook is looking to join in on the action as well. So yeah, queen steps here, pressure on the rook still, pressure on the knight. Pawn takes. This could be even more of an advantage here. There's a check. And why not? And now maybe knight e6 is a strong move. Hitting the rook, also keeping an eye on this d8 square. So neither rook is going to hit with tempo. And now this bishop's also defending the rook. So rook takes b7 can come in with tempo on the bishop as well. Probably you need to play rook e8. And now rook takes b7 here. And oh my goodness, Anish is turning this around. Activity, up material, and up on the clock. Anish might have Justin's number. Justin was up a pawn, but didn't castle for like one single move. You can take a second pawn. Actually, maybe not. I don't know. There'd be bishop check here, probably. Bishop coming back, guarding the check. Queen takes a pawn. I gotta check out these other games just to get a glimpse of what's going on here. Here, Thomas Lane is doing better. Math person. Up a pawn. And up on time. So looking to get Joshua back from round 4. Here are the board 3s. And this is looking pretty even. 4-on-3 over here. Pinned knight, though, could be a disaster. So knight steps back. The king was in time to defend the rook. So this is looking like a draw, but it's bishop versus knight. And a lot of dark square pawns for white. So this could be bad. But extra space for white. So maybe the knight's going to be better. It's going to be a coin flip, potentially. Here are the board 4s again, and it looks like opposite color bishops, likely to be a draw. Extra pawn for black, but also a worse structure. But yeah, the opposite color bishops, very likely to be a draw. Slight advantage for black. Let's keep an eye back on this top board. And yeah, Anish is just absolutely dominating. Watch out for mate. 5 seconds. Not much to do here. Rook comes back, but the pawn is pushing through. Rook sacrifice. Is there even a perpetual? No. Queen checkmate promotion. So Anish, 2 for 2 against Justin. That's huge. Yeah, this is still looking dead even with the opposite color bishops. Here are the board 3s, and white is going to be making a pass pawn, crashing through here. F6 is played. Wow. And now you take on c6, king takes, and now e6. And you cannot stop this pawn. Beautiful pawn endgame there. So Dan winning as well again. Here are the board 2s. So Dan improves to 3. Anish improves to 5. It's all tied up here. The board 4s are looking like a draw, and this math person, Thomas Lane, the captain, things took a turn for the worse here somehow. Where did things go wrong? They were up a pawn. Trade. Doubled rooks, and yeah, there goes the pawn. So it gets evened up, but now black has the pass pawn. Oh man, things were not played optimally. Things were missed. Okay, no, but now white's winning again. Look at this knight defending. Oh my goodness. Pawn takes. That's 3 pawns. Thomas Lane brings it back. Black desperately looking for the resignation button. And that's going to win them the match, assuming, yeah, board 4s did draw opposite color bishops. So Destin gets some points on the board, but it's too little too late because Thomas Lane gets the win in the end, and that's gonna clinch the match for Virginia Tech. Coming down to the wire there, double OT. Yeah, this game was a whirlwind. Let's see what was missed. It was too fast for me. So black gets very active with the oh, there's this guy's playing again. Hold on. I was looking at your game. No, this game. Let me unfollow. Okay, so white's winning here, or much better here, with the move knight d2, cutting the rook off and defending the pawn. Instead, they go for the rook trade. Rook stays on, and now this pawn is very difficult to defend. So the rook goes active. These rooks go very active. So this rook goes very passive. Rook takes 1 pawn, takes a 2nd pawn, comes back to double. Check, king up, knight reroutes. Rook gets behind the pawn again. King hits this rook. And now here, apparently rook d2. And now the move is knight d4 check. This is much better for black. Played. King here. And now the move is knight to b3. Sorry. Knight b3, helping guard the promotion square. That's exactly what we see. And now here, you just need the queen. Just promote. Promote your stuff. Black did not play that. They played here, which allows for the move rook takes c2. Absolutely beautiful defense. Leaving this rook hanging and this rook hanging. And this rook, like every rook is hanging right now. Ridiculous move here found by Thomas Lane. Absolutely clutching. Making that pass pawn no more. And now it's white's turn to throw a bit. Apparently knight d3 is really good. Here it's drawn again with king back to d7 or king d6, but now the rook gets in here, so here needs to be king g4 apparently. Yeah, well done to Virginia Tech. What's up, Fisher? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be all for today. I don't actually have any more matches left, but congratulations to Virginia Tech. Very well done. Very close match. UPenn had an early lead, but then Virginia Tech just stayed close, kept with it, tied it in the fourth round, and then won in the end. Yeah, congrats to them. Thanks everyone for being here. Let's stick around for the raid. I'm going to look for someone to send you all off to. So let's see who's on. Who's live right now? I see a couple options. So maybe we'll send you guys on a couple raids. So yeah. Yeah, we're ending Physic, but luckily there's a lot of people live. But yeah, let's raid. I'll raid Jay Dizzy. She's streaming a tournament. At least. Yeah, we'll send. I'm live on 3 channels, so I'll be raiding like 3 different people. Miss you too, Physic. Thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Happy Pi Day, 314. Yeah, thanks, Physic. All right, take care, everyone. See y'all later. Bye.